From all the new trios and the first trio Cash Cup, here's a recap of what happened yesterday and how every single one of your favorite trios did. We're going to run through every single EU and NA trio that you might like to know about, and we're going to see how they did in last night's trio Cash Cup. We're going to start with Quezy, Pixie, and Veno, which is a confirmed trio. Now, this trio was actually meant to be Quezy, Veno, and Wox, but obviously with the success of Quezy and Pixie playing together and playing duo Cash Cups, and obviously winning a duo Cash Cup, it seems like they've come together now, and they placed 13th place over on the leaderboard. Camiseti Yapko, the Polish team that everyone was looking out for. We all thought it was going to be Camiseti and Malabuka, but for some reason, they did not play with Malabuka this week, even though they are planning on playing a trio tournament on Sunday together, a third-party tournament. For some reason, it was Camiseti and Yapko, and they were actually one of the worst placing teams of the teams that did qualify out of this entire list. They ended up in 183rd place overall on the leaderboard. So the consistency that we were expecting from Camiseti, not really there, and I think it kind of makes sense considering the format and the things that we saw when we were doing our viewing party yesterday. Basically, trios right now is looking a lot more like a W key type of meta. In late games, it's all about fighting, it's about fragging. It's not really the full type simulator that I expected and that a lot of other people expected in the Fortnite community. It's a lot more fighting. So it kind of makes sense that maybe a potentially less fraggy type of trios like Camiseti Yapko might be struggling in the current format. But we'll see when it comes to finals on Sunday whether or not they can recoup and have a better placement overall. The team that was looking like the team to beat was Vico, Flix, and Chap yesterday, who had a 50-point lead or something in the first 1.5 hours of the tournament. They were looking very, very primed up. We were getting multiple 20-kill wins overall, but they only ended up in 40th place at the end of the day, which was good, but obviously not the consistency towards the end of the tournament. They did qualify about 30 minutes early, so that was good for the confidence, as we've seen Vico and Flix have had their issues as a duo, kind of struggling. The mental's not looking too good. Even though they did win a duo Cash Cup about 2 weeks ago, together, they've not been fully secured yet. So this was a good placement to sort of get the motivation back up for it, seems like. And we saw their coach as well, Razu, tweeting out that this was a good tournament for them for the overall confidence of that team. Video, Reason, and Yanis, the German boys, the big German team, ended up placing second in opens yesterday. Really, really good. There was one of the teams with the highest eliminations, I believe, in the overall tournament. So they did very well, all things considered. It's a very exciting trio to think about because obviously Yanis has won a trio FNCs before, back with Hen and Chapix back in the day. Put that together with Veno and Reason, who've been looking in very good form, and that trio is looking very spicy. 15th place was over towards MrSavage, Swizzy, and Vanya. Now that is the tier 1 Russian-speaking trio that we have all been asking about. The team that is probably going to be offering and taking every single job spot on the map in Chapter 6. It is a scary trio, but they only placed 15th place. But again, it's an open format. The placement here doesn't actually matter, but it's more of an indicator to see how exactly these teams will do. So 15th, obviously the Raft was very, very contested in yesterday's opens. So a team that, you know, loves to land the Raft like them, kind of makes sense that they probably didn't end up placing within the top 5 because that spot was incredibly contested. The Raft coin is so broken in trios you don't understand. Basically, the Raft coin means you can scan for 15 seconds, drop your coin, give it your teammate, scan for another 15 seconds, drop the coin, give it to your teammate, scan for another 15 seconds, and there's only 5 seconds in total in the entire game that you have downtime of no wall hacks. So basically, you have wall hacks the entire game as a trio. It is unbelievably broken, and we saw that yesterday with the amount of teams landing at the Raft. Speaking of the Raft, the team that struggled to do so from the Raft was Savage, Mongo, and Marius. Now they started off with almost 3 wins in a row. They were looking really, really good. They had 2 wins in a row, and then the third game, which was the high-elo game, they ended up placing pretty decent that one as well. And then from there, it was just spawn death after spawn death after spawn death. They actually ended up moving towards Doomstadt at some point, and there they actually died to Moneymaker, Nipsey, and Jordy. So, you know, not bad teams, but in terms of the confidence, dying to that set of trio, probably not very good when you're expecting to dominate teams with your newly fought trio with Marius inside of it. So they only ended up getting 303 points, which was not enough to qualify. I think that's probably something like top 2,000, top 3,000, maybe even worse. So definite disappointing start to the new trio of MMM. In 5th was Trulex and Idrops and Nebs. Now this is actually an interesting trio considering Trulex has had a lot of success with Chicho this past year, but he can't find a tier 1 trio, even though he is now advancing to the tier 1 status. Obviously, Idrop and Nebs have been long-standing players who've been playing together as well, but this last few years with duos, they just haven't gone up to par and up to the same level as Trulex has. But in trios here, with Trulex potentially leading them the way, it looks like it worked out. A 5th place performance is really good. And speaking of the team that dropped Trulex, Chicho and Teeny was also another team that failed to qualify yesterday. Chicho, Teeny, and Wox, obviously the mismatched team of random duos and players together, did not manage to qualify. Probably one of the more aggressive teams in EU. Not fully working up to expectations. A surprising performance from them. And definitely interested to see what choices are going to be made if we make a split already after one cash cup, which I doubted because it's only one trio cash cup, or we try again next week and see what happens. Another team that didn't qualify was Pink, Kido, and Noah Rayleigh. Pink's been playing a lot with Sato in duos, but now decided to team up with Kido and Noah together. Kido, very, very good player, very consistent player. Noah's been on his 3rd or 4th prime at this point as well. So a team that I thought would do well, but unfortunately did not manage to qualify overall this week. We had Haris, Skivvy, and Tayson. Tayson's back. He's back, baby. Tayson got 4th place in yesterday's trio cash cup with a trio that obviously a lot of people might not know too much about, or that doesn't really go up to the expectations of someone that you would expect Tayson to play with. But Haris and Skivvy, obviously very, very good upcoming Balkan players. Haris was at some point #1 PR player of the last few months. Now obviously had a bad season, but still a very good team there, and they ended up placing 4th place in opens. So pretty exciting to see what can happen with that trio, and if this is the resurgence of Tayson as a player now that duos is done and trios is back at it again. Other notable Taysters we can talk about is Refscott Sky and Skull, who got 28th, Blaha, Mix, and Hari 161st, Moneymaker, Nipsey, and Jurdy played together, that's 11th place, Malabuka, who was going to play with Seti, play with Pings, obviously Wox's old duo, and Panzo, one of his very good friends that he plays a lot of Zero tournaments. They ended up placing 12th. Thomas HD, one of the names that is left out of the Quezy and Veno trio due to multiple reasons. From what I've heard, Thomas was left out because he's not that much of a grinder, and Quezy and Veno want to start the 6 out of 12 wins grind again like they did in chapter 4. So Thomas obviously now out of that trio potentially, now playing with Fedoxy and Pablo Wingu, ended up placing 90th. We had Kiro, Bevis, and Della, who placed 38th. Huddy, Sidney, and Kiri, who got 3rd. Tujino, Hellfire, and Sanguild, who got 45th on the leaderboard. And the one for the Romanians, Ziandi, Phantom, and Turtle. Now, Phantom, obviously the player that moved from the Middle East, came to you, very, very good fighter, found himself a very, very good W Keying trio as well with Ziandi and Turtle, and they ended up placing 20th. Pretty cool to see that mixture of players and seeing Phantom find a good team. And the last team I wanted to mention was Sato, Novix, and Andx. Sato and Andx coming back together, playing with Novix, who's apparently a very good French creative player, also did not qualify, unfortunately. When it comes to NA, 1st place was for Batman, Booga, Kanada, and Yomzo, who pretty much dominated the competition with 5 wins in total, 585 points. 2nd was the trio that we've been talking about, Rapid, Pollo, and Bolts. Rapid and Bolts have been an absolute heater the past few weeks. I think Bolts made like $15,000 in like the last 3 weeks in just overall tournaments, and now again in trios making that happen. Now this trio was meant to be Pollo, Bolts, and Acorn, but obviously Bolts and Rapid success in duos. You'll be stupid not to try it out, so it looks like it worked out in terms of the success over there. The team obviously that you all want to talk about is obviously Cold, Peterbot, and Booga. They end up placing 12th place, 3 wins in total, 394 points, so about 110, 130 points less than Pollo. That we're always going to make that comparison between those two, but Booga is apparently playing from LA, so he's playing on higher ping, so you can't really extrapolate too much. And again, talking about what happened in the EU, right? The Raft is so unbelievably over contested that teams landing Raft consistently, they'll probably end up having a bunch of deaths or spawn, and that's where they're going to struggle and not obviously place high on the leaderboard. When it comes to finals, that might be even worse because 198 teams are probably going to try to land Raft, so good luck to all those boys there. In terms of the Clicks ended up placing 32nd. They played with Muzz and Rice together. They did pretty well, not horrible. Pretty much middle of the pack in terms of overall placements. Pretty much what we kind of expected. Like, they're going to be like the 2nd tier trio within NA. I don't think they're going to be competing for NA FNCS wins, but you know, they'll be in that top 10 area. So top 30 in an opens format is pretty decent overall as well. So notable teams that didn't manage to qualify was Paper and Victor V, who played with Nut. They placed 200 127th over on the leaderboard. And a team that did qualify but ended up placing kind of meh was Cooper, Mera, and Sphinx, who just barely scraped by with qualification with 168th place and 346 points overall. So cutting it a little bit close. I thought that trio would cook. You know, they had all the feelings of a very, very good trio, but again, it's an opens format. You can't really extrapolate too much from it, but interesting to see how these teams have been doing. Now, in terms of overall thoughts of trios, honestly, I was wrong. I had the idea that trios was going to be max type, full typing simulator, but it ended up being super, super entertaining. A lot of the time, it ended up being a bunch of people fighting in the end game. It was super chaotic. There was a lot of people alive. It was so stacked. We had 20 people fighting movings. It was disgusting. But because it was so stacked, people were fighting each other. You had to have fast mechanics. There was a lot of fighting. There were so many high elimination wins as well that, you know, trios can cook here as a format. Unfortunately, though, one of the things that might make it a bit badly is if Epic ever add movement items to the game, then, you know, teams won't be forced to fight as much, obviously, because they're going to have too many mats. But right now, in a no movement meta, trio cash cut was absolute perfect. So let me know down below what you thought of the trio cash cup yesterday if you ended up watching it. Thank you guys so much for watching. I'll see you guys on the next one.